Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Louisville Forum. I'm President Greg Condra. We meet the second Wednesday of every month at noon at Vincenzo's Restaurant. The Louisville Forum is a nonpartisan public issues group founded in 1984. Louisville Forum hosts debates and discussions of contemporary and sometimes controversial public policy issues that affect the greater Louisville community. Although we may take up issues that have a national interest, we try to highlight the local perspective. For more information on the Louisville Forum, our programs, or to make reservations, visit our website, louisvilleforum.org. Today's speaker is Jefferson County Public School System Acting Superintendent Marty Pollio. On July 2nd of this year, Dr. Pollio assumed the role of Acting Superintendent of the Jefferson County Public School with its $1.3 billion budget. Dr. Pollio began his career with JCPS in 1997 as a social studies teacher at Shawnee High School. He went on to serve as a teacher and assistant principal at Wagner and working as principal at Jefferson High School from 2007 to 15. Dr. Pollio was principal of Doss High School when he was selected as the acting superintendent. Standardized test scores have been disappointing. Superintendents arrive as saviors, only later to be blamed as the problem. New educational standards and philosophies are imposed, new programs, new buzzwords, yet Jefferson County continues to have more than its fair share of troubled schools. Can anyone figure out how to fix this? Interested taxpayers and board members, Jefferson County Public School Board members alike, have observed JCPS has a culture where people are afraid to speak their minds, a culture where careerism stifles innovation. A series of audits have raised questions. Restorative practices seemingly fail to curb violence against students and even teachers. Charter schools are on the horizon. Dr. Pollio, your work is cut out for you. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over.
Well, thank you. After that introduction, I think I'm going to quit. Finished talking about me, and he said, test scores are disappointing. I was like, woo. So thank you for having me here today. I'm honored to be here. I've been at the Louisville Forum 4 or 5 times as a guest like our principals are. So first of all, I want to take another opportunity to recognize our principals that are here. William Allen and Rob Stevenson are 2 of the best principals that we have in this district by a long shot. So I'm fortunate to come while they are sitting here. They're both veteran principals who have done great work at their schools and brought students with them from their schools. And I will tell you this, that principals, they earn every cent that they make. And these are 2 of the best. Unfortunately for them, I'm sure they thought, all right, I get to go to the Louisville Forum. And like when I brought students here, I got to see the mayoral debate that occurred several years ago. Fascinating. They signed up and get to come see me. So I'm sure they're very disappointed in that. But not that disappointed. Are you all right? Yeah, good. Yeah, that's right. They hear me all the time. So it's a funny story. So usually we have a kickoff in JCPS where all the administrators come to the auditorium at the beginning of August. And it has been historically known as an event what you would consider a dog and pony show. So 4 or 5 hours in front of 1,000 administrators where we have all kinds of speakers and balloons and shows, and everybody ends up walking out saying, boy, that was 5 hours of a waste of my time. So I said this year that it's going to be great. It's going to be 2 hours, and I was going to give my best Vince Lombardi speech. I mean, this is my time to knock it out of the park. So I spent all of June getting ready for this speech, July getting ready for this speech. Allison Martin, head of communications, is the one that runs it, and she comes with the whole list of all the speakers for the event. And I said, and this is a little bit of having someone on the inside who knows, and I said, Nope, scratch that person, scratch that. I don't want that person on there. I don't want that person. All of them gone. And at the end, she looked at me and said, Dr. Pollio, you're the only one left speaking. I said, that's exactly the way I want it. So they get to hear me all the time. So I'm used to having somebody like Morgan. I should be sitting out at these tables and listening to him speak. So I feel honored that I am up here speaking in front of you today, representing an organization that has been the vast majority, almost the entire part of my work career. So I'm in my 21st year in JCPS and have filled many different roles during that time. But throughout it, I have always been committed to the schools in which I've worked. Almost every one of them have been high poverty schools with a lot of students at risk and need, all high schools. But I've been very committed to the kids of this district. So as you will hear today as I talk, self-admittedly, we have a lot of work to do. But I will tell you this, after all of those problems that you have heard, I knew this before, but I now know this much more intimately being the superintendent. We have fantastic educators in this district from top to bottom, from our board members all the way to custodians, clerks, instructor threes, anybody in between, teachers, administrators. We have 16,000 employees. And yes, we do hear about many times in the news those that may not be committed or those that don't do the right thing. But the vast majority of the people in our district don't work for money, don't work to become rich, but work because they are committed to the success of the children of this district. And so that's been something I've learned. But we are going to, and I will highlight some of the areas which we definitely need improvement and work, and I hope I'm the one, however long this may be, to do that. But a little bit about me, and probably have heard way too much over the past couple months. I know my wife here always talks about, she's tired of hearing about me in the news and everything. So comes home and tells me she has to follow me on Twitter to find out what I'm doing every day. So I know she's tired and probably oversaturated out there, but I do want to share a little bit. I started as a teacher in this district 20 years ago this year. 20 years ago, I was starting as Shawnee as a basketball coach and as a teacher and had no idea what I was doing. And really started as a coach. That's what I wanted to do. And was a teacher just because that's what you do when you're a basketball coach. I went to school to be a coach. I wanted to be a coach. My dad was a coach and thought that's what I wanted to do with my career, enjoyed the time I was doing it. But after a year there and 2 years at Wagner, I quickly realized that I loved the teaching part of the coaching aspect more than the game. The teaching is what I really enjoyed. And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And as most of us in administration do, we have someone tap us on the shoulder and say, you know what, you're pretty good at this teaching thing. Why don't you focus on that? And then consider, you've got these leadership skills. Why don't you consider going back and being an administrator? For me, I was fortunate. It was Jim Jury, a mentor of mine who is now the principal at Louisville Male High School. He was the one that tapped me on the shoulder as I was moving through and decided to go get my administrative certification. 3 years as an assistant principal at Wagner, and then became the principal at J-Town High School for 8 years. So worked as a principal at J-Town High School, very proud of the things that happened at J-Town High School. Superintendent Hargens asked me after 8 years to move to Doss, a priority school or persistently low achieving, whichever one is the common vernacular right now. It's priority school, might be called something different down the road. But it was a school labeled as one of our poorer performing schools in the state. And I was charged with turning around that school. I've had two of the best years I could possibly have. And I will say this about working at a school like Doss High School, which is often labeled as a failing school because of test scores. And I will say this again, I put together the best possible team you could have there. And there are some of the finest educators in that school. And I would put the educators in that school against any other school in this district, in this city, public or private, with the work that they do to address the needs of our kids. And sometimes that is not identified and is very difficult in this business when it's consistently labeled as a failing school, when we all know that, yes, the outcomes for students are not what we want them to be, but great work is happening in there every day, and teachers are doing whatever is necessary to meet the many needs of our students. We have 2 other tables in here with principals and educators that do that same thing. So last spring, at the end of my 2nd year, I was in the cafeteria, chasing kids around, telling them to pick up trash in the hallways, what principals do, giving feedback to teachers on all the things that happen that principals do during the day. And I remember it was a Wednesday in May. It was Derby week. And I got a phone call. We were all following along with the superintendent search. I wonder who's going to be the interim superintendent. And I had no thought that it was going to be me. And I got a phone call, and I was trying to get out in the hallway, so I wasn't pleased with the secretary who was telling me to come take this phone call. Quickly found out it was general counsel from JCPS. So either I was being asked to interview for the superintendent position, or I was being sued. So I knew one of the two was, I better take the call either way. So I'd gotten the other call before. This was the first time I got this call, but quickly realized I was asked to be interviewing for superintendent. Called my wife and told her that that was happening. And as you can imagine, had some sleepless nights from there. Because as great as JCPS is, and as great as the people are within this organization, I know we have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of improvement areas that have to take place. And I also knew, it was very clear from data, that something that's very important to me, which is culture and climate, was at our lowest point, and it's kind of all summed up into staff and faculty morale was at our lowest point in many years. And that was evident from the many surveys that are given to faculty, staff, students. So here I was asked to do this. And we said 1.3, our budget right now is $1.56 billion. We have 101,000 students. We have 16,000 employees, a state audit facing us, all of those things you just heard about, and I was being asked to do this. So many sleepless nights, as you can imagine, wondering what it is. Do I really want to do this? But I laid there in bed one night and said, if it's not me, who's it going to be? And I do believe this, that 20 years of working in JCPS has prepared me for this. And I'm ready to tackle it, and I'm ready to do it. My dad told me many years ago when I got my first principal position, don't listen to that voice in your head that says you can't do this. That instead, you can do this, and you are the person for that. So I came to that conclusion, and ever since that day, which was about the 1st of June, I've taken on this position like it's mine. It'll be mine, like it will be mine permanently, and forever, however long that's going to be, I'm going to make sure that when I leave, JCPS is in a much better place than June 1st of 2017 when I took this position. Quickly realized that, and I probably do this too much, it comes from my coaching days. I've always said and thought, if we're going to be good, I want to be good at a few things. I think the downfall of many organizations is they try to be good at a lot of things, and they end up being marginal at everything. And instead, I said, I want to make sure JCPS has a focus, and we're good at a few things. And right now, I don't know if we could say, especially on June 1st, if we have that focus. So it's not easy to step into an organization and to say, with 155 schools, this is what we're about. It takes time to make sure that happens. But pretty quickly, I've come to the conclusion with the leadership team, input from principals, that we have 3 areas that we need to work on in JCPS, and every single day we're going to focus on those 3 areas. And I pretty much say it at every meeting. And I'm a believer in this too. You can have a brand, but if your customers don't know your brand, then it's not a brand. So I can say I can have a plan, a vision, focus areas, but if I don't walk out to schools, to a clerk in a school, to a student, and say what are the focus areas in JCPS, it's probably not going to happen. Pretty quickly, we define 3 critical areas for improvement. First one, improving culture and climate. They're 2 very different things in schools. Culture I sum up as the attitude and belief of adults and how that drives the way they work with children. Climate is what happens every single day in a school. They are intertwined, but they are so important to the success of a school, and I do not believe you can have a successful school if there is a toxic culture within that school. And so everything we do almost every day now at central office is focused on how we're going to improve culture and climate. Second of all, without question, increasing student learning. I don't say student achievement, I say student learning. I have been committed my whole career to student engagement and having students do things in school that they're passionate about. No one wants to see that teenager look on a kid's face. Everybody who's had teenagers know that look on their face when they're bored and they don't want to do something. I saw it every day for 20 years. I've battled that, I fight that. That is not what we want. So we want to do authentic things in schools that increase student learning. And finally, we want to improve our organizational coherence. So we are not going to be McDonald's or Starbucks, where every single one you walk in has the same menu, the same things happening. Each school has its own particular culture that is driven by the principal, and they're not going to be exactly the same. But right now what we have is 155 schools that make up a district of schools and not a school district. And so we have to have some components that are the same across every single school, and we fund based on those components. Everyone knows what they're about. Our central office staff supports and gets behind that. So organizational coherence is so critical for me. That's more of a long-term prospect for us, but we will continue to work on that every single day. I am tapping a lot into passion. I believe we have a lot of educators with passion. It's our job. My job as superintendent. Our job as principals to make sure that our employees continue to have passion and energy every single day. This is not a profession, as I said before, where you're going to get wealthy. You have to have a passion for what you do. Very briefly, one of the best things that happened for me at our administrator retreat, I like to use videos a lot for any speech I give. And I was lucky enough to see a SportsCenter featured clip, 12 minutes long, about a hockey player, and the title of the clip is Life or Limb. And the title and the whole video or series is about a hockey player who went into cardiac arrest on the ice, and he passed out with his mother in the stands, and they gave him CPR for a full hour before they get to the hospital. The EMTs were calling the doctor, this was in Arizona, one of the top heart doctors in America, Dr. Zane Calpe, and told him, we're going to call it. We've been giving him CPR for now 63 minutes. The doctor said, do not do that. Do not stop. I'm on my way to the hospital. And they said, come on, it's been 65 minutes. There's no way this is going to happen. The doctor walks into the hospital. The mother is sitting in the emergency room with the entire hockey team. She's telling the story on this SportsCenter feature, and she's crying right now because she believes her son's dead. The doctor walks into the emergency room and says, are you Craig's mother? She says, yes. He says, I'm Dr. Zane Calpe. I love my job, and I'm really, really good at it, and I'm going to save your son. And I showed this to the 1,000 administrators, and I said, this is the passion that we have to have every single day, every employee in JCPS, is I love my job. The doctor didn't have to say that. He didn't have to say I love my job. But he did. He said, I love my job, and I'm really, really good at it, and I'm going to save your son. So I told this story, kind of the hook I thought was going to get it, and all of a sudden that has come alive in JCPS, where we have people making T-shirts and banners, Twitter hashtags, I love my job. So passion is what we have to continuously work on. It gets more difficult as the year goes on. It's not easy. In the middle of February, educators are going to work when it's dark outside and coming home when it's dark outside. It's a lot harder to have that passion. But without it, we will not be a great district. So as leaders, we have to do that every single day, is to tap into that passion. As you can probably imagine, a big push for me is to improve communications of the district in several ways. First of all, messaging. This message you're hearing from me, I say it almost every day. Messaging is critical. Last night at the board meeting, I said the same message. So messaging is very important. Having weekly wrap-ups every single week. I don't know, I've got a great communications team. They came to me and I said, let's get the message out. You all tell me what you want to do. They said, we're doing weekly wrap-ups. We're doing bi-weekly press briefings. We're going to say yes to every media ask. At press briefings, you're going to have to just take questions like I will. That's not easy, as many of you probably know, just to have questions fired at you. But these are the important things that we have to do that show that we are about making sure that we are open and honest with the public, especially about the improvement areas that we have. A couple of areas that I think are challenges for us coming up, and I want to address those. I think the next 24 months are probably the most critical months for JCPS in many, many years. And I'll say this for several reasons. First of all, superintendent search. I think it's pretty clear I want that and hope that I continue on as superintendent. If I don't, I'll still be a great part of JCPS and be excited and pleased to do the work every single day. But picking our next leader is so critical. Leadership is so important to make sure that you have successful schools and a successful district. A lot of research about the power of a principal and the power of leadership, as you all probably know. So that is a huge part. Second of all, our facilities plan is, we are woefully lacking in our facilities plan. I went to Lexington about 2 weeks ago and visited their new high school and drove home feeling defeated because I saw that new high school. Our last high school was built in 1968. Turns 50, Ballard High School, the building turns 50 years old next year. We've had a couple of middle schools built and a few elementary schools built when we should probably be building multiple schools every 5 years. And so we have facilities right now where our facilities plan is fixing HVACs and roofs. And I will tell you this, there is something powerful about bright, shiny new schools, and especially sometimes in some of our most disadvantaged neighborhoods. So we're going to really have to look at our facilities plan, and a lot of our facilities built when population shifts hadn't occurred in this city, and we have not adjusted to that. Second of all, our student assignment plan. Everyone knows we were close to being mandated how to take that through House Bill 151 last year. That will likely come back. It is imperative on us to evaluate and look at our student assignment plan. The student assignment plan obviously came out of a desegregation lawsuit in the mid-70s, as many of you know. But I don't think it's accomplishing what we want to accomplish right now. And I have found how politically charged that topic is in the past few months of being in this position. So that is something either we're going to look at and figure out how to fix, or it's going to be dictated for us. So that's a huge issue. Both of those work together, student assignment and facilities. Leadership development in our district has not been strong. And we have to do a better job at developing our leaders and making sure that happens. And then coherence across the districts. As I said before, it is a goal of mine that we are a school district and not a district of schools. And we have to bridge that gap right now. Having said that, I think two of the best opportunities that have come in front of this district in many years are in front of us right now. And just quickly highlight those two. The first one, the academies of Louisville. Valley High School is a part of this. We essentially got this from Nashville. I was in Nashville on Monday afternoon visiting one of the schools. Fantastic program in 11 of our high schools that essentially turns every single high school into wall-to-wall academies, schools within a school that are focused on student engagement and careers, developing students within careers. Kids get on a pathway, and so if if Valley High School has a pre-medicine pathway, which I believe you do, correct? Sure. Then kids take all of their classes in that pre-medicine pathway, math, English, science, social studies, and that career and technical education course. We make that learning more relevant for them, where those teachers collaborate together around that career theme. They walk out the door with a diploma, college credit hours, articulated credit hours, a certification where they could go right into a medical facility and work, hopefully apprenticeship. So during their senior year, they're actually doing that work instead of what we all probably did in our senior year, which was take a few classes and be an aide for a teacher and let me find another elective I need to take. Let's get them working. Let's get them in our community, and let's meet the labor needs of our community. And then second of all, there's a group called Louisville Promise. It's the Louisville Promise Partners that I believe will provide not only scholarship dollars. So I was down in Tennessee. Tennessee right now provides a 2-year scholarship to every single public school student to a 2-year technical school or community college. Guaranteed. Every kid gets 2 years paid for. So Louisville Promise is looking into how can we do that with JCPS students, where a kid that graduates from JCPS is guaranteed at JCTC 2-year scholarship. What a great I heard kids talk about it in Tennessee. But it also aligns all of our resources between JCPS, Metro Government, United Way, all of these, to find ways that we can collaborate together to provide wraparound services for our kids. Because we're working in silos right now. How do we break down those silos and work together? I think this has the potential to be groundbreaking for our district. So as I conclude, and then I'd love to take questions, I also want, I could not, since I have some people in the room who affect this, we have some legislative concerns and priorities that are very important for our future. Without a doubt, everyone wants to ask about pensions. Pensions is front and center on everybody's radar. And so I'm not going to stand up here and say I'm an expert on pensions. I would never do that. I have very little knowledge of financial systems when it comes to pensions. I shouldn't say financial pensions. I've got a $1.5 billion budget I'm in charge of. But when it comes to retirements, I am no expert on that and wouldn't claim to be. Having said that, we are faced with the prospect of losing significant labor in our schools across this state. We already struggle right now to hire teachers to fill every classroom. I don't know what we're going to do as a state, not just a city, if we are not able to put teachers in our classrooms. Right now, our neediest kids, we have vacancies in classrooms. If we take away that pension promise, that contract that was guaranteed, we lose 225 teachers tomorrow, and that happens across this state. We've got serious problems. So I acknowledge it's been most of my career discussion about the pension system and needing to fix it. Having said that, we have to keep in mind we've got to educate our kids. We've got to have great teachers in our classrooms, and I hope we're able to honor the contract that was given to our teachers when they started. And second of all, decrease in SEEK funding. SEEK funding is the money given to states from the state for local funding. So right now in Jefferson County, we only get 30% of our budget comes to us from the state. 70% is local property tax. And so SEEK is set up so that districts with less or higher degrees of poverty, they get higher amounts of SEEK funding. So we get lower because we have higher property value than almost anywhere else in the state. Our assessments coming in from local tax dollars. So we lose a good amount of the money that we send out to the state in tax dollars goes to other counties. So we are willing to do that. We're right now, about 70% comes from local tax dollars on real estate assessment. But there is a real concern that SEEK is either going to be affected or other services are going to be affected as a result of budget cuts. So this is front and center on our radar as we move forward and figure out how we're going to do the things that I said are huge concerns for us.
We want to take questions.
Yep. So I will wrap up and say once again that I appreciate all the time. I hope I didn't talk too long. Big challenges on the front when it comes to what we're going to do with JCPS, but I'd like to finish by saying I'm confident, very confident, that this is a great school district and will continue to be one and get better in the future. So I'll take questions now.
So today's questioners are board members Joe Marks and Stacy Huff.
Question from the audience: how many Dreamers are in the school district? So
it's hard to know exactly. We're trying to get a handle on what we think that number will be. It's not something that we track. So when students by federal law come into our schools, we do not identify anything as immigration status. So very difficult to know. I can tell you it is a substantial number. Our English language learner population has significantly increased. I believe we are committed, and I am committed as superintendent, and I know our board is, to make sure that our students feel supported and safe in our schools no matter who they are, and we want, while they're in there, we want to provide a sense of belonging to our students. So however many that is, we are committed to doing that.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Larger metro areas have many school districts rather than one large district like JCPS. Would it make more sense to break up the JCPS district and handle the local issues locally?
Well, I've been asked that question many times: is the school district too big? And so usually my answer has been without effective systems and structures in place to oversee our schools, to monitor and support our schools, our principals, our teachers, then yes, it is. But if those systems are in place and effective structures are in place and organizational coherence exists, then it is absolutely not too big. And that's why that is one of my 3 focus areas, is to make sure that we have that coherence. And the power of having a large district is what we can bring to the table with our financial capacity. We can bring a lot of supports, a lot of diversity, a whole lot of opportunities and access that other districts might not have when it comes to our peer districts around us. So my job is to make sure that it is not, and I believe we will be there.
Is JCPS considering diverting funds from transportation to infrastructure for new schools?
Well, it's not. There's a lot of restricted funding where you are not able to do those kind of things. So I would say this: as we review the assignment plan, I think myself and all of our board members want to do 2 things. Well, our student assignment plan is based on several things, and I think as we review that, we want to do that. First of all is choice, giving parents choice. We bus a whole lot of students to Manual High School every day from all over this county. And I think people are proud to have that as a part of that. So we want choice in our schools. We want the opportunity to have equity and diversity in our schools. Having said that, I think all of our board members want to reduce travel time as much as absolutely possible while ensuring those two things. So yes, we are looking to not necessarily divert funds, but we want to reduce travel time as much as possible while still having choice and equity as two big parts of our assignment plan.
What is your vision for the role of adult education in JCPS?
Well, there are different aspects of it. Some cities don't even have it apart as the public school system. It might be at the local community college. So we are currently working on some plans where we can dramatically increase the access to adult education, especially in the fields that are needed so much in this community. For example, manufacturing. We have a lot of open jobs in this community in manufacturing that aren't filled. And so can we be a partner in this, provide job training and adult education in those fields to our neediest communities around this city? So I think we can, and so if I had to say that was where we would like to go, I think that is our way we can really support our economic development and growth in this city.
What is your view on expanding sports in priority schools?
Well, I think I'll go to a bigger belief of mine. Clearly, I was a coach and athletic director. So if I wasn't that, I mean, I believe in the power of sports and athletics to get kids involved in school. But bigger than that, not just sports, is a sense of belonging to the school. If nothing else, if we take out all the lessons that are learned from a coach and teamwork, you know, being on a team, all of the hard work, all of those things that happen, what sports does, athletics, and other extracurricular and co-curricular things, and it could be chess club, debate team, academic teams, FBLA, what they do is provide a sense of belonging to students. And so where students are unsuccessful is where they come to school from 7:40 to 2:20, they get on the bus and leave. We say, you know what, you're behind in reading and math, so we're going to double up in those two areas. And so a kid now that doesn't like reading and math, we're telling him, guess what, you get to do that twice as much time, and you don't get to do those things like art and music and computers and those things that kids become passionate about. They do no after-school activities, and we wonder why they're not engaged in school. And so anything that increases a sense of belonging to a school where a kid says, I found my niche, my place, this is where I belong, these are some peers around me, and I have a purpose here, and a smaller family, will increase the likelihood of success. So I believe it's important that we increase student belonging, especially in schools like priority schools.
We received several questions regarding assaults on school buses or in schools themselves, so I'm just going to read one of them.
Okay.
But know that it's applying to schools and the buses. There have been numerous assaults on bus drivers by JCPS students. What steps are being taken to protect these bus drivers from violence? And again, the other, speaking to an instance in a school, what steps are being taken to protect teachers there?
Okay. Well, first of all, and I think anybody that ever knew me as a principal knows that I was pretty tough when it came to discipline and making sure that we had a positive academic climate. So I don't want to necessarily say, you know, that discipline is what we have to do. But what we have to make sure is that we have positive academic climate in every school, in every hallway, in every cafeteria, in every bus. And I've said so many times, we focus so much on what happens afterwards instead of what happens before the event takes place. And I would say all of you in here as parents know that to be true. The punishment is not as important as what you do prior to that with the child. Now, discipline after is going to always happen. But what we do beforehand what we teach our kids, what we expect out of our kids, what we make clear to them is so critical for the success of our students and making a healthy, positive academic climate. But a big part of that is making sure that our adults can do the job, they're supported with what they do, that we're all on the same team together. So first of all, if it's with bus drivers, it's making sure that they know you are not a separate entity, that when the kids walk out the door and get on the bus, they're yours now and not ours. They're ours as a school from the time they get on that bus until the time they get off of it. And I told our bus drivers, you're the first face our kids see every day when they get on the bus and the last when they get off. And these principals will tell you, every single day I had, and I don't want to sound corny with this, your heart gets broken by what our kids face in this community every single day. Not every kid, but we have some heartbreaking situations occurring. And the best 7 hours of a kid's day are the time from when they step off that bus on it until when they get off of it. First of all, it's incumbent on us to know that and take responsibility for it. It's also incumbent on us to set up systems in place to make sure we have safe, healthy academic learning climates. So, I mean, I don't know if I can say exactly one answer to that question, but what I can do is say we have to develop that, we have to support our bus drivers, and if that means additional adults on those buses in order to have that safe, healthy learning environment on the bus, then we're committed to doing that.
So many of these are running in the same direction. Maybe we can answer two at the same time. Why is the system opposed to neighborhood schools? And how do you get parents involved when their kids are traveling all the way across town to a school that the parents struggle to get to?
So, first of all, I'll say this, we have to know facts. 91% of our students get their first choice when it comes to selection of schools. And so many of those selections are not the neighborhood reside schools. So we do have 91% that get that. Second of all, our average travel time on a bus is 25 minutes. That's the average for every single student. So we need to know that and be clear of that. But you know, I would be the first to acknowledge that our student assignment plan right now is not where we want it to be. There are a lot of problems. Our entire county has changed in the past decade, and there hasn't been a significant review of student assignment in a decade. I think we could drive around downtown and realize our city has changed and where our citizens live in this community. So we have to do that and make sure that we ensure that every single student in this county has equitable access to programs. We should not have schools in this district that do not have the same access to programs as others, art, music, and many other programs. So that's one thing that I've been committed to my whole career, is to making sure of that. I think all of our board members are committed to reducing travel time as much as possible. But having a community-wide examination of that student assignment plan is probably going to be critical as we move forward.
What and why was the recent change made on the use of classified instructors, which is affecting how world languages are provided to students? This has immediately stopped my son's Spanish instruction.
Last year, there was an OEA complaint that a state law exists, and so
What's OEA?
Office of Educational Accountability. Essentially, if you have a complaint of unethical behavior, it would be sent to the Office of Educational Accountability. They investigate. And the claim was that instructor threes, which are those that have a bachelor's degree but do not have a teaching certification, were being used in classrooms. State law clearly says that the only people who can provide instruction, plan instruction, and grade students are those with a teaching certification in that field. And so we were charged about a month ago. I was given, just got a mail one day, here you go, fix it. and I was charged with the fact that this is state law. And for me, if it is state law, we follow the law. It's not me to set law. There's others in this room that make the law. We follow the law, and that is a legal requirement that anyone is providing instruction has a certification. So we've had to adjust immediately in order to meet that need. And now we are working hard to find those teachers with the appropriate certification so that we can continue to provide those services to schools.
You have talked about the importance of culture starting at the principal, but it seems that many are chosen by questionable criteria. If you agree, how do you fix this?
Well, principals, with the exception of our priority schools, the about 16 or 17 schools that are labeled as priority, what I told you about Doss earlier, my only capacity to choose principals are those 16 schools. Every other school, about 130 of them, are chosen by what's called a site-based council, which is usually made up of either me or a designee, depending on the model, 3 teachers, 2 parents, and another administrator. And they choose the principal of that school. I'm not sure if that is the most effective model for choosing the leadership of the school. I believe in site-based council. I'm just not so sure if choosing the principal is correct. But that is currently the law. So right now, that committee of folks based on site-based law are the ones that choose the principal. So I'm only usually one of 7 who has the ability, or my designee, that's only 1 vote of 7 to choose the principal in a school.
Okay. And I too am going to combine 2 questions from 2 different questioners. What are the plans, if any, for integration of charter schools, and what do you see the future of magnet schools in our system?
You guys brought the tough ones today, didn't you? I could have predicted them, written them down. I was waiting for the charter school one. Hadn't gotten that one yet. So clearly, I believe that one way or another, by 1920, we will have charter schools in this community. And so that is something that we don't clearly support as a district, but it is something that the legislature has made clear is going to happen in this state. So at this point, it is our duty as an authorizer to make sure, and really my duty as superintendent, to prepare for that. So I'm not so sure, you know, in my position, being an obstructionist with charter schools is not necessarily what we want. I do believe this. If we have great schools in this community, then I support it. But I want to make sure that as authorizers that the legislature identified this law specifically for populations of students who might be considered underachieving or where there is a significant gap. So first of all, I want to make sure those are the only ones that are a part of any authorization. And second of all, that it doesn't affect our funding so much that we end up not being able to provide services for the vast majority of this students in this community that are still going to be in Jefferson County Public Schools. So no matter what happens, the vast majority of the students in this district will still be in JCPS. And the vast majority of the students that have significant needs and at-risk needs will still be in JCPS. And as a community, we have to be committed to making sure that those students are successful. So admittedly, we have work to do. I think myself and all board members would say we have achievement gaps. We have areas that we need work to do. But we can't let this law for charter schools impact, as a community, our ability to meet the needs of our most vulnerable kids.
With a $1.6 billion budget,
1.583.
Why do we still read about JCPS teachers having to purchase school supplies out of their pockets?
100% agree. One of the first things I said was we have a $1.583 billion budget. We should never have a teacher that is trying to monitor their paper, not having the supplies they need. Now, I believe there's a difference between a need and a want, and I tell teachers that. So I want to help you get the things you want, like a smart board, like clickers for kids that help poll kids on questions and give data back. I want to help you get that. But the needs are what are critical. I believe this, I've said this my entire career. We should never have a kid walk into a classroom who doesn't have a writing utensil and we don't say, here, have one. When we all went to school, well, got to teach you responsibility. Well, no. The option is to have that kid sit there and not work the entire 70-minute period. So here's a pencil. Well, what if they don't bring it back tomorrow? Well, here's another pencil I'll give you, so you'll have another one. You don't have to give me collateral. Don't give me a shoe. You know, the old days, you had to give up a shoe. You had a kid walking with one shoe in the class to get a pencil. We've all been there. So, or me in school asking the girl behind for, here's a pencil. Here's the paper you need. We should not have teachers struggling to do that, and that is without a doubt an important part of culture and climate. We had schools last year that didn't have working copiers. At Doss High School, we went 4 or 5 days without working copiers. Now, I had enough experience and a little bit of political clout that I rattled the cage enough to get people out there to fix it. But a brand new principal, they might go 2 weeks without having a working copier. It's unacceptable. We can't do that. So the questioner is exactly right on that should not happen.
Time for one more?
Sure. One more? You good?
Just one.
Make it a doozy. What you got?
I do have one back there we decided not to read, but
Oh.
yeah. How is the pension issue affecting teacher morale, retention, and hiring?
Well, we saw an immediate panic right off the bat from teachers that were heading to Frankfurt with KTRS to check out retirement. And I think, this is not a quote, but I heard through the rumor mill that KTRS was even saying, we're not taking appointments right now. You can go submit paperwork. We'll get back to you later because of the backlog. So very serious concern with what will happen if we have a large amount of teachers and principals heading to retire. So without a doubt, it is a major concern. Even more of a concern is the reduction in force amongst teachers right now. So you could talk to our university partners and they will tell you about the major decline in students enrolling in teacher prep programs right now. Almost cut in half from a decade ago in some programs. And more than that, minority teachers right now is another huge issue of how do we bring minority teachers so that we have equal representation on our teaching staffs through schools. So enormous challenge right now is filling our classrooms with quality teachers, having equitable teaching force that mirrors our student body, and ensuring that they're not all running right now to retirement. So we've got serious, and this is not just in this city or this state, this is across America right now, as our best and brightest students are not even considering going into education right now. And it is a major concern that we are going to have to fix as a society if we want a top-notch education force. Close it out?
I'm going to close it out. Well, if you're like me, you learned a lot today, and I think whether you have a child currently in the school system, or you're a taxpayer, or you operate a business, you care about knowing the mind of the person who's leading one of the most influential organizations in this community. And thanks for coming out. We have a mint julep cup for you, so please enjoy that.
Thank you.
And yeah, come on back.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.